You betrayed me once. I destroyed you forever.
The smell of motor oil and my own bitter disappointment hung in the October air as I crouched beside my dying Ford in the driveway. 23 years of marriage, and here I was, Ben Morrison, 46 years old, listening to my own daughter tear me apart through the kitchen window like I was some kind of lab specimen. "Mom, seriously, Dad's pathetic." Emily's voice carried clear as a bell through the screen. "Roger's got more backbone in his pinky than Dad's got in his whole body. I mean, come on. You made one little mistake 20 years ago, and he's still whining about it like some kind of victim." One little mistake. That's what they were calling it now. I tightened my grip on the wrench until my knuckles went white. 20 years ago, my wife Kathy had what she called a brief indiscretion with her real estate mentor. I'd forgiven her, moved on, built a life. But lately, those late-night networking meetings were happening 3 times a week, and she'd started buying lingerie that never made it to our bedroom. "Dad's just not a real man," Emily continued, her voice dripping with the kind of casual cruelty that only comes from youth and social media validation. I posted about it on TikTok yesterday, living with a beta male, and got like 3,000 likes. Even my friends think he's a joke. Nice to know I'd become content for her followers. Maybe I could get a plaque. World's most pathetic husband, as seen on TikTok. I stood up, my back protesting after too many years hunched over printing presses at Morrison Graphics, the small shop I'd built from nothing while Kathy climbed the real estate ladder. Through the window, I could see her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the kitchen light as she nodded along with our daughter's character assassination. "The whole town knows about Mom and Roger," Emily said. "Mrs. Cartwright next door told everyone at book club. At least Mom's finally with someone who can provide for her properly. Roger Hendricks. Mortgage broker, country club member, drives a BMW that costs more than I make in 2 years. I'd met him exactly once, at Emily's high school graduation party 3 years ago. Firm handshake, expensive suit, the kind of smile that made you want to count your fingers afterward. I walked around to the passenger side of the Ford and opened the glove compartment, pulling out the manila envelope I'd been carrying around for 2 weeks. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages I'd found on Kathy's iPad, hotel receipts from the Riverside Inn, and one crumpled wrapper from protection I'd discovered under our bed last Tuesday. "You know what the worst part is?" Emily's voice had shifted to that performative tone she used when she was building up to something viral-worthy. "Dad actually thinks we don't know. Like, he skulks around the house looking all wounded and mysterious, but everyone can see right through him. It's embarrassing." The kitchen door opened and Kathy stepped onto the back porch. Even at 44, she was stunning. The kind of woman who turned heads at the grocery store and made other wives nervous at dinner parties. Tonight, she wore a black dress I'd never seen before, her makeup flawless despite the late hour. "Ben," she called out, "I'm heading to the office. Roger and I have a late showing with the Patterson account." At 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, for a house that had been on the market for 6 months. "Sure thing," I said, not looking up from my engine. "Don't wait up." She hesitated for a moment, and I could feel her studying me. "Are you okay? You've been acting strange lately." Strange. That was one way to put it. I'd been acting like a man who'd finally opened his eyes after 23 years of sleepwalking through his own life. "Just tired," I said. "Long day at the shop." "Well, don't stay up too late with that old car. Some things aren't worth saving." She clicked across the driveway in her heels, climbed into her Lexus, and drove off into the night. Emily appeared in the doorway a moment later, phone in hand, already typing. "Dad, can you not be weird about Mom working late? It's like super cringe when you get all jealous and possessive." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When did she become this person? This entitled, cruel stranger who spoke to me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Emily," I said carefully, "when exactly did you decide I wasn't worth basic human respect?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, Dad, don't be so dramatic. I'm just saying maybe if you acted like a grown man instead of a sad puppy, people might take you more seriously." "People like who?" "Like everyone. Mom, her friends, my friends, the neighbors. Do you know what they call you at the real estate office? Kathy's first husband. Like you're already divorced and just haven't figured it out yet." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my voice level. "And what do you call me?" She shrugged. "I don't know, Dad, I guess, when I have to, when she had to." I set down my wrench and wiped my hands on an old rag. Well, Emily, here's something for your next TikTok. Sometimes the sad puppy learns new tricks. She was already walking back inside, thumb flying across her phone screen. Whatever, Dad. Try not to embarrass us any more than you already have. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone in the driveway with my broken-down Ford and my broken-down life. But for the first time in months, I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I was feeling something else entirely. I was feeling dangerous. The next morning, I drove to Davy's bar instead of going straight to work. Davy McKenna had been my best friend since high school, back when we both thought we'd conquer the world with nothing but determination and working-class pride. Now he owned the most popular dive bar in town, and I owned a failing print shop and a marriage that had become a public joke. "You look like heck," Davy said, sliding a coffee across the bar. At 48, he still looked like he could bounce troublemakers twice his size, though his dark hair had gone silver at the temples. "Feel worse than I look," I said, settling onto a stool. The bar was empty, except for two regulars nursing beers and watching morning TV. "Tell me something, Davy. How long have you known about Kathy and Roger?" He stopped wiping glasses and met my eyes. "How long have you known?" "Couple weeks, maybe longer if I'm being honest with myself." "Then, about that long?" He set down the glass and leaned against the bar. "Ben, I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you, but what? You thought I couldn't handle it? I thought you deserved to hear it from her, not from the town drunk." I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "Apparently, I don't deserve to hear it at all. According to my wife and daughter, I should just be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they throw my way." "Emily said that?" "Emily said a lot of things. Posted some of them online too, from what I understand." I pulled out my phone and showed him the TikTok video she'd made. "Living with a beta male," I read aloud, featuring candid footage of her pathetic father trying to fix his pathetic car while his wife cheats on him with a real man. Davy watched the whole thing, his expression growing darker with each passing second. "Jesus Christ, Ben, she actually filmed you without permission and posted it online?" "Got 3,000 likes. I'm internet famous now. This isn't funny." "No," I agreed. "It's not, but you know what? I'm done being the punchline." Davy studied my face carefully. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that for 23 years I've been playing by rules that nobody else seems to follow. I've been the good husband, the provider, the guy who turns the other cheek and keeps his mouth shut. And where has it gotten me?" "Ben, nowhere. It's gotten me nowhere. My wife's screwing around with a mortgage broker, my daughter thinks I'm a joke, and half the town feels sorry for me while the other half laughs behind my back." I finished my coffee and stood up. "But here's the thing about being underestimated, Davy. People stop paying attention to what you're actually capable of. What are you planning to do?" I smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it felt genuine. "I'm going to remind everyone that the quiet guy in the corner isn't always the harmless one." That evening, I followed Kathy to the Riverside Inn. It wasn't difficult. She'd gotten sloppy, overconfident. She parked her Lexus next to Roger's BMW in the back lot, away from the main road but visible from the service alley where I waited in my Ford. I watched them go into room 237, the same room number I'd seen on 3 different hotel receipts. Roger had his hand on the small of her back, possessive and familiar. Kathy was laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back in a way I hadn't seen in years. They stayed for exactly 2 hours. When they came out, Kathy looked rumpled and satisfied, checking her lipstick in a compact mirror while Roger adjusted his tie. They kissed goodbye like teenagers, all hands and breathless whispers. After Kathy drove away, I waited another 10 minutes. Then I got out of my car and walked over to Roger's BMW. The license plate read, "Closer One." Apparently even his vanity plates were about his job. I pulled out my keys and carved a single word into the driver's side door. "Cheater!" Then I took out my phone and snapped a photo, making sure to get the hotel in the background. Evidence for later. I was walking back to my car when I heard the voice behind me. Well, 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 Benjamin Morrison, as I live and breathe. I turned around to find Mrs. Cartwright, our 70-year-old neighbor, standing in the parking lot with her phone pointed at me. She must have been visiting her sister who worked the night desk. "Evening, Mrs. Cartwright," I said calmly. "Don't you evening me, young man. I saw what you did to that car. Vandalism is a crime, you know. So is adultery, but nobody seems too concerned about that." Her eyes lit up with the kind of malicious glee that only comes from stumbling onto premium gossip. "Oh, this is rich. Wait until I tell the ladies at book club. Kathy's husband finally snapped. She held up her phone, showing me the photo she'd taken. This is going straight to Facebook. Local man vandalizes innocent car in jealous rage. I bet I get 100 shares before midnight. I looked at the photo, then at Mrs. Cartwright's triumphant expression, and felt something cold settle in my chest. You know what, Mrs. Cartwright? You should definitely post that. In fact, why don't you tag Kathy in it? I'm sure she'd love to see it. Her smile faltered slightly. You're not upset? Upset? Why would I be upset? You're just doing what you do best, spreading gossip and stirring up trouble. It's practically a public service. I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot, looking confused. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with notifications. Mrs. Cartwright had indeed posted the photo, and it was already making the rounds on social media. But that was okay. I was counting on it. The next few days passed in a blur of whispered conversations and sideways glances. At the print shop, my employees kept shooting me worried looks, like they expected me to have a breakdown at any moment. At the grocery store, people I'd known for years suddenly found their shoes fascinating whenever I walked by. Emily was in full damage control mode, posting videos about toxic masculinity and abusive fathers that painted me as some kind of unhinged stalker. Each video got more views than the last, and her follower count was skyrocketing. Kathy, meanwhile, had gone into full victim mode. She'd called her sister, her mother, and half her real estate office, spinning a story about her increasingly unstable husband who was clearly having some kind of midlife crisis. The story was always the same. I was jealous, paranoid, and possibly dangerous. Roger was just a colleague, a friend, someone who'd been kind enough to help her with a few difficult clients. The fact that I'd vandalized his car proved how far I'd fallen from the man she'd married. It was a good story, believable. It cast her as the long-suffering wife and me as the unhinged husband. The only problem was that it wasn't true, and I had evidence to prove it. But I wasn't ready to play that card yet. Instead, I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I apologized. I called Roger directly, got his number from the real estate office directory, and left a voicemail that was equal parts contrite and pathetic. Roger, this is Ben Morrison, Kathy's husband. I want to apologize for what I did to your car. I've been under a lot of stress lately, and I took it out on you, which was wrong. I'd like to pay for the repairs and maybe buy you a beer to clear the air. Man to man. I think we got off on the wrong foot, and I'd like to fix that. He called me back within an hour. Ben, I have to say I wasn't expecting this, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Kathy said you'd been having some difficulties lately. Kathy's being generous, I said. The truth is, I've been acting like a jackass. Work's been stressful, Emily's college expenses are ending us, and I guess I started seeing threats where there weren't any. Well, I appreciate the apology, and I think clearing the air is a good idea. Why don't we meet at Davies tomorrow night, say 8 o'clock? That sounds perfect. And Roger, thanks for being understanding. A lot of guys would have pressed charges. Hey, we've all been there. Marriage is tough, and sometimes we don't handle the pressure as well as we'd like. I hung up the phone and smiled. Roger Hendricks had just agreed to meet me on my turf, surrounded by people who'd known me for 20 years. He thought he was dealing with a broken man looking for redemption. He was half right. The next evening, Davies was packed. Word had gotten around that Ben Morrison was meeting with the man his wife was allegedly sleeping with, and nobody wanted to miss the show. Roger arrived right on time, wearing an expensive casual outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He spotted me at a corner table and walked over with a kind of confident smile that said he thought he had nothing to worry about. Ben, he said, extending his hand, good to see you. I shook his hand and gestured to the empty chair across from me. Thanks for coming. Can I buy you a drink? Beer's fine, whatever you're having. I signaled Davy, who brought over 2 bottles of local brew. The conversation around us had died to a whisper. Everyone was straining to hear what we were saying. So, Roger said, settling into his chair, Kathy tells me you've been having a rough time lately. Kathy talks to you about our marriage? He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Well, we work together pretty closely. Sometimes personal stuff comes up. I bet it does. I took a sip of my beer and studied his face. How closely would you say you work together? Pretty closely. Real estate's a relationship business, you know. Trust is everything. Trust, I repeated. That's important in a marriage, too. Roger's smile became a little more forced. Absolutely. Look, Ben, I hope there aren't any hard feelings about the business side of things. Kathy's one of our top agents, and I've been mentoring her on some of the bigger commercial deals. Mentoring, is that what you call it? The temperature at our table dropped about 10 degrees. Roger set down his beer and leaned forward slightly. What exactly are you implying? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, setting it on the table between us. I'm not implying anything, Roger. I'm stating facts. His eyes flicked to the envelope, then back to my face. What's that? Evidence, I said calmly. Text messages, hotel receipts, photographs, 23 years of marriage, and my wife thinks I'm too stupid to notice when she's cheating on me. Roger's face went pale, but he tried to maintain his composure. Ben, I think you're misunderstanding. Room 237 at the Riverside Inn, I interrupted. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months. Sometimes Saturdays when you tell your wife you're showing houses to out-of-town clients. The bar had gone completely quiet now. Even the TV seemed muted. Roger glanced around nervously, suddenly aware that we had an audience. Look, he said quietly, maybe we should discuss this somewhere more private. Why, afraid people might hear the truth? I opened the envelope and pulled out a photograph. Roger and Kathy kissing in the hotel parking lot, his hand clearly visible on her A. This was taken last Tuesday night, right after your business meeting. Roger lunged across the table, trying to grab the photo, but I was ready for him. I pulled it back and held it up so half the bar could see it. Easy there, Romeo, I said. Wouldn't want people to think you're the violent type. He sat back down, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You son of a witch. Now that's not very professional language for a mortgage broker, I said. What would your clients think? What do you want? He hissed. I finished my beer and stood up, gathering the photos back into the envelope. I want you to understand something, Roger. You think you're dealing with some pathetic loser who's going to roll over and let you destroy his life. But here's the thing. I'm not that guy anymore. I leaned down so only he could hear me. I know where you live. I know where you work. I know your wife's name, your kids' names, and which country club you belong to. I know you've been skimming points off your mortgage deals and hiding the money in an offshore account. And I know that if any of this information were to become public, your life would become very, very complicated. Roger's eyes widened. How did you? 23 years in the printing business, Roger. You'd be amazed what people leave in their documents when they think nobody's paying attention. I straightened up and smiled at the crowd that had gathered around our table. Thanks for the beer, Roger. We should do this again sometime. I walked out of the bar to absolute silence, leaving Roger sitting alone at the table with 50 pairs of eyes staring at him. By the time I got to my car, I could hear the buzz of conversation starting up again. My phone started ringing before I even made it home. What the heck did you do? Kathy's voice was shrill with panic. Roger just called me. Said you threatened him in front of half the town. I pulled into our driveway and sat in the car for a moment, watching her pace back and forth in the living room through the front window. Emily was there too, phone in hand, probably live tweeting the family drama. I didn't threaten anyone, I said calmly. I had a conversation with your business partner. Cleared the air like civilized adults. He said you had photographs. I had evidence of your affair. Yes, would you prefer I pretend it's not happening? There was a long pause. When Kathy spoke again, her voice was different, colder, more calculating. Ben, I think you need help. Professional help. This obsession with Roger, this paranoid behavior, it's not healthy. You're right, I said. It's not healthy. No one else isn't healthy. Finding out your wife's been cheating on you from your neighbor's Facebook post. Room 237, Kathy. Every Tuesday and Thursday, sometimes Saturdays. Another pause. Then, where are you? In the driveway. Come inside. We need to talk. I hung up and sat in the car for another minute, watching my wife and daughter through the window. They were huddled together on the couch now, Kathy's arm around Emily's shoulders, both of them looking toward the driveway like they were waiting for a dangerous animal to come through the door. Maybe they were. I got out of the car and walked into my own house like I was entering enemy territory. Kathy and Emily were still on the couch, presenting a united front against the crazy man who dared to call them out on their behavior. Sit down, Ben, Kathy said. We need to discuss this situation rationally. What situation is that? I asked, remaining standing. The situation where you've been cheating on me for months? Or the situation where our daughter posts videos online calling me a beta male? Emily's face flushed. Dad, those videos were just... Just what? Just you humiliating your father for internet points? Just you filming me without permission and posting it online for strangers to mock? You're being dramatic, Kathy said. Emily's just expressing herself. It's what young people do. And what's your excuse? I asked. What's your justification for screwing Roger Hendricks in cheap motel rooms while telling everyone in town that I'm having a mental breakdown? Kathy's composure cracked slightly. How dare you speak to me like that in front of our daughter? Our daughter? I laughed. Our daughter thinks I'm a joke, Kathy. She's made that very clear. So let's drop the Protective Mother Act and deal with reality. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photo of Roger and Kathy in the parking lot. Emily gasped, but Kathy just stared at it with a blank expression. Where did you get that? She asked. I took it last Tuesday night after your business meeting. You followed me? I investigated my wife's suspicious behavior. There's a difference. Kathy stood up and walked to the window, her back to me. Fine. You want the truth? Here's the truth. Yes, I've been seeing Roger. Yes, we've been intimate. And yes, I should have told you sooner. Emily stared at her mother in shock. Mom? But, Kathy continued, turning back to face me, I'm not going to apologize for finding happiness with someone who actually appreciates me. Appreciates you, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Roger treats me like a woman, Ben. He makes me feel alive, desired, important. When's the last time you made me feel any of those things? When's the last time you gave me the chance? I gave you 23 years of chances, she snapped. 23 years of waiting for you to become the man I needed you to be. But you never did. You just stayed the same small-town printer with small-town dreams and small-town ambitions. And Roger's different? Roger's successful. Roger's going places. Roger has plans that extend beyond fixing old cars and running a failing print shop. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my voice level. I see. And what about our marriage vows? In sickness and in health, for richer or poorer? Don't quote wedding vows at me, Ben. You broke those vows the day you stopped trying to be a husband worth staying married to. Emily was crying now, her phone forgotten on the couch beside her. Mom, Dad, please stop. But we were past stopping. 23 years of resentment and disappointment were pouring out like water from a burst dam. So what happens now? I asked. Do you want a divorce? Kathy lifted her chin defiantly. Yes, I do. Roger and I are in love, and we want to be together. I'm filing papers next week. And Emily? Emily will live with me, obviously. She's already 18, so custody won't be an issue. What about the house, the business? We'll split everything 50-50, as required by law. Though honestly, Ben, there's not much to split. The house has a second mortgage, and your print shop is barely breaking even. She was right about that. I'd been struggling to keep Morrison Graphics afloat for the past 2 years, taking on debt to cover payroll and equipment repairs. Fine, I said. If that's what you want, that's what we'll do. Kathy blinked, clearly surprised by my calm acceptance. Fine? Fine. You want out, you're out. You want to be with Roger, be with Roger. Just don't expect me to make it easy for you. What does that mean? I smiled and headed for the stairs. It means you might want to talk to Roger about those offshore accounts before you make any long-term plans. I left them sitting in the living room and went upstairs to pack a bag. I'd be staying at Davies for a while, but that was okay. I had work to do and I needed space to do it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over, Morrison. You have no idea who you're messing with. Roger, trying to sound intimidating, I texted back, You're right, it's not over, it's just getting started. I spent the next week living in the apartment above Davies' bar, planning my next moves like a chess player thinking 6 moves ahead. The first order of business was hiring a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but the best divorce attorney in the county. Margaret Butch Kowalski had earned her nickname by destroying opposing counsel in courtrooms across the state. She was 55 years old, built like a linebacker, and had never lost a divorce case involving adultery. So, she said, reviewing the evidence I'd brought her, your wife's been cheating with her business partner, your daughter's been publicly humiliating you online, and they both think you're going to roll over and play dead. That's about the size of it, Butch grinned. I love cases like this. The cheating spouse always thinks they hold all the cards until they realize they're playing against someone who actually knows the rules. She spread the photographs across her desk. These are good, clear, dated, undeniable. The text messages are even better. They show premeditation and ongoing deception. And you said something about financial irregularities? I handed her a flash drive. Roger's been skimming points off his mortgage deals and hiding the money offshore. I have bank records, transaction logs, everything. How did you get this? Let's just say that when you've been printing financial documents for 20 years, you learn to recognize patterns. Butch plugged in the flash drive and scrolled through the files. Her grin got wider with each page. Mr. Morrison, your wife picked the wrong man to cheat on. By the time I'm done, she'll be lucky to get her clothes back. What about Roger? Roger's going to have bigger problems than your divorce. This information suggests tax evasion, wire fraud, and violation of federal banking regulations. If the right people were to receive copies of these files. Hypothetically speaking, Mr. Hendricks might find himself explaining his business practices to some very serious federal investigators. I left Butch's office feeling better than I had in months. But the legal system was slow, and I wasn't a patient man anymore. I had other plans for Roger and Kathy, plans that would start bearing fruit much sooner than any court proceedings. The next phase of my campaign began with a simple phone call to the State Real Estate Licensing Board. I discovered that Kathy had been claiming continuing education credits for courses she'd never taken, using forged certificates that Roger had provided. It was a small violation in the grand scheme of things, but it was enough to trigger an investigation. Phase 2 involved Roger's wife, Patricia. I'd done some research and discovered that she was active in several charity organizations and prided herself on her family's reputation in the community. She also had no idea that her husband was cheating on her with his business partner. I mailed her copies of the photographs anonymously, along with a note that simply said, "Thought you should know." Phase 3 was more personal. I'd learned that Emily was planning to pledge a sorority at her college, one that prided itself on traditional values and family integrity. I wondered how they'd feel about a pledge whose mother was an adulteress and whose father was being publicly humiliated online for entertainment. I didn't have to wonder long. A few carefully placed phone calls to concerned alumni, along with copies of Emily's TikTok videos, resulted in her pledge being indefinitely postponed pending review of her application. By Friday, the dominoes were starting to fall. Kathy called me in tears. "Ben, what did you do? The licensing board is investigating me, and my boss is talking about suspension pending the outcome." "I didn't do anything," I said truthfully. "I just reported what I observed." "You bastard. You're trying to destroy my career." "I'm trying to protect my interests in our divorce proceedings. If you lose your license, it affects the value of our marital assets." "This is about revenge, and you know it." "No, Kathy. Revenge would be posting those hotel photos on your company's Facebook page. This is just business." She hung up on me but called back an hour later. "Roger's wife knows," she said quietly. "Knows what?" "About us. Someone sent her pictures. She's filing for divorce and demanding half of everything, including his business." "That's unfortunate. Ben, we need to talk, face to face. This has gone too far." "I agree. It went too far the first time you cheated on me. But I'm willing to discuss terms." "Terms? For our divorce. I assume you still want one?" There was a long pause. "Yes, but maybe we can work something out that's fair to both of us." "Fair," I repeated. "That's an interesting word choice coming from you." We agreed to meet the next day at a neutral location, the coffee shop downtown where we'd had our first date 25 years ago. It seemed fitting somehow. But before that meeting, I had one more card to play. That evening, I drove to the abandoned textile factory on the outskirts of town. It had been closed for 15 years, but the building was still structurally sound, and the acoustics were perfect for what I had in mind. I set up a small digital recorder in the main floor office, tested the sound levels, and then sent a text to both Kathy and Roger. "Meet me at the old Hartley Textile Building tomorrow at 8 p.m. Come alone. We need to settle this once and for all." They both replied within minutes, agreeing to the meeting. They probably thought I was planning some kind of dramatic confrontation, maybe even violence. They were half right. I was planning a confrontation, but the drama would come later. Saturday evening arrived gray and cold, with a kind of drizzling rain that made everything look like a noir movie. I arrived at the textile factory an hour early, double-checked my recording equipment, and positioned myself where I could see both entrances. Kathy arrived first, looking nervous and overdressed in a designer coat that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the empty factory floor, before stepping inside. "Ben," she called out, "are you here?" I emerged from the shadows near the old supervisor's office. Right here, Kathy. Thanks for coming. She looked around at the abandoned machinery and broken windows. Why did you want to meet here? This place gives me the creeps. Privacy, I said. No witnesses, no interruptions, just us. Where's Roger? He'll be here. We're a little early. Kathy pulled her coat tighter around herself. Ben, I want you to know that I never meant for things to happen this way. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. I know, and I'm sorry. But we can't change what's already happened. We can only decide how to move forward. You're right, I agreed. So how do you want to move forward? I want us to end this marriage with dignity. No more investigations, no more anonymous tips, no more revenge. Just a clean, simple divorce where we both walk away with something. And Roger? Roger and I want to be together. His marriage was over long before I came along, and so was ours. We're not the villains here, Ben. We're just two people who found love in an unexpected place. I almost laughed. Love, that's what she was calling it. What about Emily? I asked. Kathy's expression softened. Emily's confused right now. She's caught between us and she's acting out, but she's still our daughter, and she needs both of us to be adults about this. She called me a beta male on TikTok, Kathy. She filmed me without permission and posted it online for strangers to mock. That's not acting out, that's cruelty. She's 20 years old, Ben. 20-year-olds do stupid things. You can't hold that against her forever. Before I could respond, the factory door opened again, and Roger walked in. He looked as nervous as Kathy, his expensive clothes out of place in the industrial setting. Ben, he said with a nod. Kathy. Roger, I replied. Glad you could make it. How's Patricia handling the news? His face darkened. You son of a witch. You destroyed my marriage. I didn't destroy anything. I just provided information. What Patricia did with that information was her choice. She's taking everything, he said. The house, the business, the kids, 20 years of marriage, and she's cutting me off without a penny. That's what happens when you cheat, I said. Actions have consequences. Don't lecture me about consequences, Roger snapped. You're the one who's been stalking us, vandalizing property, making threats. What threats? You know what threats. I pulled out my phone and activated the recording app. Actually, I don't. Why don't you refresh my memory? Kathy stepped between us. Stop it, both of you. We didn't come here to fight. We came here to figure out how to end this mess. You're right, I said. So let's talk. Roger, tell me about your business practices. Specifically, tell me about the offshore accounts. Roger went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. The accounts in the Cayman Islands where you've been hiding skimmed mortgage points for the past 3 years. The ones that Patricia doesn't know about, and neither does the IRS. You're fishing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? I pulled out a manila folder and handed him a bank statement. This is from your account at First Caribbean International. Current balance, $847,000. Want to explain to Kathy where that money came from? Kathy snatched the statement from Roger's hands. What is this? Roger, what is he talking about? It's not what it looks like, Roger said quickly. It's complicated. It's theft, I said. He's been stealing from his clients for years, skimming points off their mortgage deals and hiding the money offshore. That's how he's been funding your little affair, Kathy. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, that jewelry he's been buying you. It's all paid for with stolen money. Kathy stared at the bank statement, her face growing paler by the second. Roger, tell me this isn't true. Kathy, I can explain. Tell me this isn't true, she screamed. Roger looked like a trapped animal. It's not theft, it's just creative accounting. Everyone does it. It's how the business works. Everyone doesn't hide nearly $1 million in offshore accounts, I said. Everyone doesn't commit federal crimes to impress their girlfriend. You bastard, Roger snarled, lunging at me. You've ruined everything. I sidestepped easily, and he stumbled into a pile of old machinery. When he got up, his expensive shirt was torn, and a thin line of red marked his face from a small cut. Careful, Roger, I said. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself. You think you're so smart, he panted. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've done. There are people involved in this that you don't want to cross. What people? People who don't like it when their business arrangements get disrupted. People who expect a certain level of discretion from their partners. I felt a chill run down my spine. Are you saying you're involved with organized crime? I'm saying you should have minded your own business. Kathy was staring at both of us like we were strangers. What are you talking about? Roger, What business arrangements? Nothing, Roger said quickly. He's trying to scare us. But I could see the fear in his eyes, and I realized that I'd stumbled onto something much bigger than a simple affair. The offshore accounts weren't just about skimming mortgage points. They were about laundering money for people who didn't take kindly to exposure. We're leaving, Kathy said suddenly. Both of us. Right now. Good idea, I agreed. But before you go, I want you both to understand something. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. What do you mean? Kathy asked. I smiled and held up my phone. I mean, I've been recording this entire conversation. Every word, every admission, every threat. And tomorrow morning, copies of this recording are going to the FBI, the IRS, and every major news outlet in the state. Roger's face went white. You can't do that. Watch me. Ben, Kathy said desperately, please, think about what you're doing. If you expose Roger, you'll be putting all of us in danger. Should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on me with a criminal. I walked toward the exit, leaving them standing in the middle of the abandoned factory. Oh, and Kathy? You might want to find yourself a new place to live. I'll be filing for divorce on Monday, and I'll be seeking full ownership of the house as compensation for your adultery. You can't do that. Actually, I can. Turns out that when your spouse commits adultery and associates with known criminals, it affects the division of marital assets. My lawyer explained it to me in great detail. I paused at the door and looked back at them. 23 years, Kathy. 23 years I gave you, and this is how you repaid me. Then I walked out into the rain, leaving them to contemplate the ruins of their carefully laid plans. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that made everything seem possible. I walked into Butch Kowalski's office with a spring in my step and a digital recorder in my pocket. Please tell me you got them talking, she said before I'd even sat down. I placed the recorder on her desk and hit play. For the next 20 minutes, we listened to Kathy and Roger incriminate themselves in adultery, fraud, and possible money laundering. Butch's grin got wider with each passing minute. Mr. Morrison, she said when the recording finished, you've just handed me the divorce case of the century. What can we get? Everything. The house, the business, spousal support, punitive damages for emotional distress. Your wife will be lucky if she walks away with the clothes on her back. And Roger? Roger's going to federal prison. That recording is evidence of multiple felonies, and the FBI takes money laundering very seriously, especially when it involves offshore accounts. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in years. How long before this all plays out? The criminal case will take months, maybe years, but the divorce can be expedited, especially with evidence this clear. I'd say we can have you legally separated within 60 days with a final decree shortly after. What about Emily? Butch's expression grew more serious. That's trickier. She's technically an adult, so custody isn't an issue. But if you want a relationship with your daughter, you might want to consider how this will affect her. She made her choice when she decided to humiliate me online for entertainment. Let her live with the consequences. Ben, I have to ask. Are you sure you want to go nuclear on this? There's still time to work out a more amicable settlement. I thought about it for a moment, remembering 23 years of marriage, 20 years of raising Emily, all the good times mixed in with the bad. Then I remembered Kathy laughing with Roger in the hotel parking lot, and Emily calling me a beta male on TikTok. No, I said firmly. They wanted to play hardball. Let's play hardball. That afternoon, I drove to the local FBI field office and handed over copies of the recording, along with all the financial documents I'd gathered on Roger's offshore accounts. The agent who interviewed me, a serious woman named Sarah Chen, listened to everything with growing interest. Mr. Morrison, this is very helpful, she said. We've been investigating suspicious mortgage activity in this region for months, and your information fills in some important gaps. What happens now? Now we build a case. Mr. Hendricks will be arrested within the week, and we'll freeze all his assets pending investigation. If your wife was knowingly involved in any of his criminal activities, she could face charges as well. She wasn't involved, I said. She's just guilty of adultery and poor judgment. Agent Chen nodded. We'll determine that during our investigation. In the meantime, I'd advise you to be careful. People like Mr. Hendricks sometimes have dangerous associates. I left the FBI office feeling like I'd crossed a point of no return. There was no going back now, no possibility of reconciliation or forgiveness. I'd declared war on my own family, and I intended to win. That evening, my phone rang. It was Emily. Dad? Her voice was small and scared. Can we talk? What about? About everything, about Mom and Roger, about the things I said online, about what's going to happen to our family. There's no family anymore, Emily. Your mother made sure of that. Dad, please. I know I said terrible things, and I'm sorry. I was angry and confused, and I took it out on you. But you're still my father, and I love you. For a moment, I almost weakened. Emily was still my daughter, still the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework. But then I remembered the TikTok videos, the cruel laughter, the way she'd looked at me like I was something disgusting. It's too late for apologies, Emily. You made your choice. What choice? You chose to side with your mother. You chose to humiliate me online. You chose to treat me like garbage while she was cheating on me. Those were your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. Dad, you were just being cruel, I interrupted. And cruelty has a price. I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring new developments, new revelations, new opportunities for revenge. But tonight, I just wanted to sit in my small apartment above Davy's bar and savor the knowledge that justice was finally being served. The next morning brought news that exceeded even my wildest expectations. Roger had been arrested at his office in front of his remaining clients and staff. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about the mortgage broker money laundering scandal, complete with a photo of Roger being led away in handcuffs. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was the follow-up story that ran in the afternoon edition, revealing that Roger's criminal activities had been exposed by a concerned citizen who discovered evidence of the scheme during divorce proceedings. By evening, everyone in town knew that I was the one who'd brought down Roger Hendricks. The same people who'd been whispering about my wife's affair and my daughter's online mockery were now talking about how I'd outsmarted a criminal and helped the FBI solve a federal case. Davy was grinning when I walked into the bar that night. Ben Morrison, federal informant, he said, sliding a beer across the bar. Has a nice ring to it. I prefer concerned citizen, I said, but I was smiling too. The bar was packed, and for the first time in months, people were looking at me with respect instead of pity. I'd gone from town joke to local hero in the span of 24 hours. So what's next? Davy asked. Next, I wait for the divorce proceedings to play out. Butch thinks we can get everything, the house, the business, even spousal support. What about Kathy? What about her? Where's she going to live? What's she going to do for money? I shrugged. That's not my problem anymore. She made her bed with Roger, and now she can lie in it, alone. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You have no idea what you've started. This isn't over. I showed the text to Davy, who frowned. You think that's from Roger? Roger's in federal custody. This is probably from one of his associates. Are you worried? I thought about it for a moment. No, I'm not worried. I'm done being afraid of bullies and criminals and people who think they can intimidate me into silence. Ben, for 23 years, I let people walk all over me. My wife, my daughter, my business competitors, everyone. But not anymore. If Roger's friends want to make threats, let them. I've got the FBI on speed dial now. That weekend, the final piece of my revenge plan fell into place. Emily called me sobbing to tell me that she'd been expelled from college. They said my social media presence was incompatible with the university's values, she cried. Dad, they kicked me out because of those stupid TikTok videos. Actions have consequences, I said calmly. But Dad, I apologized. I took down all the videos and posted an apology. I said I was wrong about everything. Too late. What am I going to do? I can't afford to go anywhere else, and Mom doesn't have any money because of the divorce. You'll figure something out. You're a smart girl when you're not being cruel. Dad, please, I'm begging you, help me. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old paternal instinct, the desire to protect and provide for my child. But then I remembered the way she'd laughed while calling me a beta male, the way she'd filmed me without permission and posted it for the world to see. Emily, I said quietly, do you remember what you said about me not being a real man? Dad, do you remember posting that video calling me pathetic? I was angry. Do you remember telling your mother that I was an embarrassment to the family? She was crying harder now. Yes, but I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. You meant every word. And now you want me to rescue you from the consequences of your own actions. Please, Dad, I'll do anything. I'll make it up to you, I promise. No, I said, you won't. Because real men don't enable people who treat them like garbage. Real men have boundaries and consequences and self-respect. Dad, good luck, Emily. I hope you figure out how to be a better person than your mother raised you to be. I hung up and blocked her number. It was harsh, maybe even cruel, but it was also justice. For 20 years, I'd been the safety net that allowed my family to treat me badly without consequences. Now they were learning what life was like without that safety net. 3 months later, I was sitting in my newly renovated house, my house now, according to the divorce decree, reading the morning paper when I came across a small item in the local news section. Kathy Morrison, formerly a real estate agent with Pinnacle Properties, has filed for bankruptcy following her divorce from local businessman Ben Morrison. Mrs. Morrison, whose real estate license was revoked following an ethics investigation, is currently working as a clerk at a discount retail store. I set down the paper and looked around my living room. New furniture, fresh paint, family photos that actually made me happy instead of reminding me of my failures. It had taken 3 months, but I'd finally reclaimed my own life. The divorce had been even more favorable than Butch had predicted. Kathy got nothing. No spousal support, no share of the house or business, nothing but her personal belongings and a mountain of legal debt. The judge had been particularly harsh about her adultery and association with a federal criminal. Roger was serving 7 years in federal prison for money laundering, tax evasion, and wire fraud. His wife had divorced him and taken everything, leaving him with nothing but prison uniforms and the knowledge that his criminal arrogance had destroyed multiple lives. Emily was living with Kathy in a one-bedroom apartment across town, working at a fast food restaurant to help pay rent. Her college dreams were over, her social media following had evaporated, and her future looked about as bright as her mother's. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Davy. Ben, you need to get down here, now. What's wrong? Just get down here. Trust me. I drove to the bar, wondering what crisis required my immediate attention. When I walked in, I found Davy behind the bar with a huge grin on his face, and about 30 people scattered around the room. Friends, neighbors, business associates, even some of my employees from the print shop. Surprise! They all shouted. What's this about? I asked. It's about you, said Mrs. Patterson, one of my longtime customers. We wanted to throw you a party. A party for what? For standing up for yourself, said Jim Bradley, who owned the hardware store down the street. For showing everyone in this town that good guys don't always finish last. For proving that sometimes the underdog wins, added Sarah Chen, the FBI agent who'd worked Roger's case. I looked around the room at all these people who'd watched my humiliation, witnessed my wife's betrayal, seen my daughter's cruelty, and realized that they weren't here out of pity. They were here out of respect. Speech! Someone called out, and others took up the chant. I held up my hands for quiet. I'm not much of a speech maker, I said, but I'll tell you this. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I was a failure as a husband, a father, and a man. The room was completely silent. I was wrong, I continued. I wasn't a failure. I was just playing by the wrong rules. I was trying to be the good guy in a game where the good guys always lose. So what changed? Asked Davy. I thought about it for a moment. I stopped caring about being the good guy and started caring about being the smart guy. I stopped worrying about what other people thought and started focusing on what I knew was right. And what was right? Asked Mrs. Patterson. Justice, I said simply. Not revenge, not cruelty, just justice. People who cheat should face consequences. People who lie should be exposed. People who commit crimes should go to prison. I raised my beer in a toast. To justice, and to second chances. To justice, the crowd echoed, and the party began in earnest. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone in my house and reflected on the past 6 months. I'd lost a wife, a daughter, and a marriage, but I'd gained something more valuable, my self-respect. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. Congratulations, you won. This time, I knew exactly who it was from. I typed back, yes, I did. The response came immediately. Was it worth it? I looked around my quiet house, thought about my successful business, my loyal friends, my reputation in the community, and my newfound peace of mind. Every penny, I replied. Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a drink, and settled in to watch the sunset through my living room window. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new possibilities. But tonight, I was content to sit in my own house, surrounded by my own things, answerable to no one but myself. For the first time in 23 years, I was truly free. And that, I realized, was worth more than any marriage, any family, or any life built on lies and compromise. I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing other people's games and start playing your own.